Today is Tuesday, September 24th. The Mets season is on the line, and we're in person to talk about it. So much better.
Jerry and Charlie, Shea Station. Jerry and Charlie, riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your fans, now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
It is a lovely fall day, a perfect day for important baseball. I might even call it playoff baseball, because that's the vibe that I'm getting from this series coming up. And we are just so lucky, myself and wonderful producer Jack, to welcome Jerry into Studio 2 for an in-person app, our first of the year.
Is it really?
Absurd, yeah.
That is absurd. I'm the lucky one. I got two Jacks that I get to lock eyes with during this.
Beautiful.
Excuse me if I get distracted during this episode.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get some hard eyes going.
No, man, this is great. This is fun. We were talking about things that we want to hit off of. Let's start with the crowd. You were in attendance. I was watching from my home. It sounded exactly how you needed it to sound from a spectator watching it on TV. It seemed intense. How was it in person?
So 2 days before I went, the Mets grabbed a victory. Nimmo, after the game, said, we want you guys here, pack the place. And I'm not going to lie to you. A part of me got worried about that, because you had brought it up before the episode, and I think it's valid to bring up here. When the Mets last hosted a playoff series, notoriously, the crowds were not sold out because of the things that happened a week before. So when Nimmo said, fill the crowds, fill this place up, I got nervous because I didn't want us to embarrass ourselves. And we did not embarrass ourselves. Saturday and Sunday, the environment in Citi Field was unlike anything I've seen in the past 10 years of being a fan. And going there on Sunday and being in that crowd and seeing how loud they got for each and every pitch and everything that happened, it was a very unique and special fan experience. On top of that, they won the game and beat Zach Wheeler, which was sent me into a frenzy.
Kind of unheard of.
The amount of people that said hello was super heartwarming as well. Just everything you could want out of that series and that experience. So shout out Mets fans for packing the place. If you went, you know who you are. Shout out to you for getting there for the final homestand of the year. And now we're here, man. This is what we play for. Final week of the season. The games still matter, and we're in the dance.
This is such a fun time to be in New York. First of all, it's finally fall.
Yes.
It feels nice. I got a jacket.
I was cold today.
Last time I was in the city, it was 93.
That was 3 days ago. It really was.
I know.
That long ago.
But it's finally fall. It's 70 out today. There's tons of Mets hats and Yankees hats. Both teams, both fan bases are feeling good. Just a fun time to be in New York for baseball season.
Yeah.
And the football teams kind of played better. So
Giants finally get a win. Let's go.
My Bengals are 0-3, but
we don't have to talk about it.
That's okay. All right. But again, I think some people gave Nimmo a hard time for begging fans to come, which, he had a point. I appreciated it, because if you're a fan of the New York Mets, you've been asking for them to put together a good team. They have a great team to root for. They're fun. They play the game the right way. They needed you in attendance. And he said, look, if you're a fan, you wanted this. This is a playoff atmosphere. Show out. And they did. And they played for him. I loved the combination.
And that's also the kind of guy I want to hear that from. The
Absolutely.
guy who's on an 8-year deal, who's committed to the long haul, who's probably going to finish his career entirely with the Mets. I don't think a lot of people realize that. That's the kind of guy you want that coming from, and how perfectly poetic that he was the one that hit the home run against Zach Wheeler that won them that game. A really successful homestand for the Mets, a very necessary one after losing the series in Philadelphia. They sweep the Nationals, and then they take 3 or 4 against the Phillies. That National series kind of falls by the wayside because of how dominant they were in Game 2 and Game 3. 10 runs scored 3 games in a row for the first time in franchise history. Jake Irvin almost gave us another scare. I'm sick of that guy.
He's a good pitcher,
He's
man.
A really good piece. He's going to be a problem. Be a problem for the years to come. But all eyes were set on that Phillies series. The Mets started with a bang, 10 runs in the first game. Phillies responded by basically doing the same thing to us, making those last two all the more important. And just big-time performances across the board from so many different guys this past week that we can kind of go wherever you want. And I think you mentioned it before we started, but I think there's one guy that we should start with, a guy that we really didn't talk about all that much last episode.
Well, we'll get to that. I'll let you hit that off. But I don't want to gloss over that sweep against the Nationals. It was games that they had to win, and they did it. Like, this is the difference between this team and the teams of the recent past. When they have teams that they should steamroll, they decided when it matters most to actually do it.
Yes.
Like the Nationals aren't a rollover team. They're still pretty, solid of a ball club, and there's guys that are still playing very good baseball. They made huge wins, and then it came down. I was like, man, just split with the Phillies.
Yeah.
I was thinking that mentally. You're supposed to win the series at home, and ultimately, but I was just like, hey, just get by, go 500 against the Phillies in a 4-game set. And they did above that too. And they were competitive. They could have rolled over in game 2. Peterson got knocked around a little bit, but they came right back. And that's what they've been doing. They've been getting off the canvas and fighting back right away. So who'd you want to start with though?
Hakuna Matata, Jerry.
Yeah, that's smart.
I mean, how easy would it have been for the story of this season to be this team had a terrific ride. They were led by an MVP candidate in Francisco Lindor having a magic season, and then he goes down and the team goes down. It very easily could have been the story of the 2024 Mets. Instead, this young kid comes up. The way he plays shortstop is really fun to watch. I know a lot of the spotlight has gone to his hitting because it's really come out of nowhere. The way he plays shortstop, he looks like he's been in the league for 5+ years. The way he knows, I mean, the ball Trey Turner hit on the ground on Sunday's game that he had to charge and make a throw on the run made it look so easy. That's a play that Mets shortstops 10 years ago have the most trouble with, and I'm sure you can attest to that. This guy has been really special to watch.
I'm not going to say anything.
You don't have to.
Plead the fifth.
But the way that Luisangel Acuña has stepped up for this team, when they really, they just needed him to kind of be a placeholder until Lindor hopefully got back. Instead, he's completely made a name for himself in just 30 plate appearances. He's already got 3 home runs, hitting out of the 9-hole, resetting the lineup, doing his part for a team that really needed him to do so. It's just one of the special things that happens to teams that go on special runs.
You said he made a name for himself. I think his big brother made a pretty good name for the family to start with.
He has a brother?
He does. He's pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he has 1 MVP.
I'm surprised I never heard of him.
Yeah. Okay. He's going into Big Bro's house, You nailed it. So for me, the story was like this already writes itself.
Yeah.
Your MVP candidate, Francisco Lindor, goes down. The team falls apart. But this team, this leadership group, figured out a way to do it. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening. These guys are filling in. They made Luisangel Acuña. They made him comfortable enough to come in. I guarantee you the veterans went up and talked to him and said, hey, we need you. We're not going to be yourself. We're going to keep you, help you, guide you in the way to be a big leaguer, but go about be comfortable here.
Yep.
It used to be, you tiptoed around the big leagues. Guys are welcoming because they need the young guys to step up. Such a good environment for him to come into, and hats off to him because his defense was supposed to be. Yeah, I feel like that's
right.
I feel like every single Mets prospect over the last 13 years, minus Dom Smith.
Yeah.
Bad defensively. Hopefully he can hit. And they've come up, and I'm like, that guy could play some defense.
Yeah.
And he looks pretty good. And we haven't seen his speed much outside of from stealing bases, but he's looked very good defensively. I'm impressed with what I've seen, and he's shined in the 9 games that he's been in.
And it continues to highlight the actions made by the 2023 team. That trade deadline, we'll see how much we continue to reap the fruit from that, but so far so good, I think.
They basically, paid down Scherzer's contract. They gave $30 million. Was it a way for this guy?
Yeah, and so far he looks worth it. I mean, how much do you pay to save your season in September?
That's right.
I guess that's the question. 3 homers and 30 plate appearances in MLB. In AAA, 7 home runs and 587 plate appearances. Sometimes things just click and they work at the perfect time.
There are guys too that turn it on when the lights are the brightest. I've seen it. I've been around it. Where guys, when it's the stakes are the highest, they just show out. Like some guys just perform when the pressure's on. Acuña might be one of those guys that where like he was just destined to be in the big leagues, and it brings out the best in him. Because it's sometimes for prospects like this, the minor leagues feel like spring training almost, because you don't have any pressure to perform, to actually get called up. It's kind of your destiny. Well, he's here now and he has to perform. I'm not saying that we're not going to get any, a bumpy road, because it's a game of failure.
Save
and we're going to see it. We're going to see it at some point, struggles, but some guys do just step up. For instance, for me, it's like Cespedes.
Yeah.
I just remember watching him in spring training being like, they paid, when we were in Oakland, I was like, they gave this guy 4 years. Watching him swing, I was like, he doesn't have it. And then we go to Japan to start that, and he hits a home run that almost went through the Tokyo Dome. I was like, oh boy, I didn't see that one time in the whole month we were together.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, all right, this guy just needs the cameras to be on. Acuña might be that guy.
Yeah, sometimes you can tell. And I think the way we found out was on Saturday. Him and another guy who you could say all the same things about, Francisco Alvarez, who has recently turned it on. They go back-to-back to take the lead in that game, a game that the Mets eventually win. Boy, is it just such a relief that Francisco Alvarez looks the way that we thought he would look all season long, finally, late in the year. Last 10 games, 5 home runs, and pretty much all of them have been very impactful in big games and big moments. He's a guy that's always kind of relished the big moment. Even in 2023, when that season went by the wayside, you think of the moments from that year. A lot of them involve Francisco Alvarez, and now he's getting a chance to kind of be a more important piece of a playoff team. Because in 2022, he got thrown to the fire. Last 5 games of the season, that's when they decided to bring him up. Wasn't exactly set up for success. Now he's an integral piece of this team, and he's picking up the offense when they need him most.
I mean, he's such a major part of if this team is truly World Series caliber. Mm-hmm. This team has earned their way to the playoffs. We'll see what happens, but they've earned this chance to possibly make the playoffs.
Yes.
But in order for them to be a true contender, they have to have depth of lineup and some fight. We talked about Mark Vientos and his capability, but if Francisco Alvarez steps up and he's on a hot streak like this team is capable of putting up some really big numbers against, I don't care who's pitching. If these guys, because you can't make a mistake to 6 hitters if they're hot. Very impressive, and at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, imagine I tell you in mid-September, hey, by the way, the Mets middle infield of Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor, they're out.
Gosh,
they're injured. They're both hurt. Now you have leadoff Jose Iglesias riding an MLB best 16-game hitting streak. No one has a longer streak in baseball. He's hitting .419 over the last 3 weeks in that window. It's just guys stepping up, man. I think that's what's so lovable about this team. We just had Jake in here saying hello, and we're talking about, I guess Yankees are back on top. They've had a weird year, but they're the number 1 seed now. And you think of that team, and you think about obviously Judge and Soto. You got contributions from Wells and Stanton, but it's those guys. It's those 2 guys. And when you think about this team, after you get past the Lindor MVP case, it's just a little bit of everyone. Everyone has had different runs at different points in the year to help carry the team. Right now, it's guys like Iglesias and Acuña and Alvarez. But 3 weeks ago, it really wasn't that. That wasn't the story at all. Acuña wasn't even with the team. Alvarez was still mired in a deep slump. It was someone else, a guy like Mark Vientos, carrying the load. Now he's taken a step back. Other guys have taken a step forward. And I think when you have a team that can just pick each other up like that, it really bodes well for your chances to do well in October, because there's a chance that guys get cold when the lights get really bright. And we have guys on this roster that have demonstrated that they're not afraid of big moments.
Yeah, I think that's the key is this is just a complete team.
Yeah.
Guys have stepped up. You talked about Lindor and McNeil being out. You think about this bullpen that they put together when Brooks Raley, Drew Smith went out.
So many names: Sean Reed Foley,
Danielle Nunez. Those are 4 key guys, especially with Reed Foley was up and he pitched incredible, but it wasn't over a long stretch. But Nunez was one of your guys that stepped up this year. That you were, I was worried because who are they going to pitch in the 8th inning? But guys are stepping up. They're putting themselves in a chance to be the guy, and they've kind of taken over.
So I think that's a good place to go next, honestly, because the biggest story coming out of that 4-game set, and I'll tell you how I felt in the ballpark. So
good. Please do.
The Mets they have a narrow margin of error. That's a 1-1 game against Zach Wheeler, Tyler McGill on the mound. I thought Mendoza, that might have been maybe his best managed game as a Met. That was one of the most important games he's had as a manager thus far. He pulls McGill after 4 innings because it's clear if you gave him the 3rd time through the order, the Phillies are going to, at least hit the ball hard. Who knows what happens after. He goes to Maton for 2. Shout out Maton. Managed a lot of contact, got the outs he needed. Budo comes in for the 7th inning, pitches clean. And in my brain, I'm saying, okay, I think Budo probably starts the 8th, and then we see what happens with Diaz. And then the lights go out. And the music starts playing. I'm like, oh my God, there's no one in after him. This is Edwin Diaz's game to close. And I loved what I saw both before and after the game, because obviously during the game, Diaz comes in, 6-out save, one of maybe his most trademark moment as a Met outside of the no-hitter against the Phillies. But after the game, it was clear that Mendoza, we've been conserving these guys all year long, and now we're here. You have to let them go. You have to use them in these big spots. You have to trust that the guy that you're paying $20 million a year to be the closer can get the job done. And he did. And I just really loved it. I was terrified in the moment, but after, the cheers set in and the clarity set in afterward, it looks like the right move. And this bullpen has just come up so big. Not only Edwin Diaz, but Reed Garrett reestablishing himself as well. Just a lot of great timing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with Carlos Mendoza. That was a playoff game. Mm-hmm. He viewed it as that. The team knew it. They're aware of what's going on. They know they're going into Atlanta. Going into Atlanta in a 3-game set with a 2-game lead gives you that cushion.
Yeah.
They needed that W, and he went to his guys. Tyler McGill was, if this game's in May, he goes back out.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a different feel. We're in the late September. He understands. Tyler McGill wants to win, wants the Mets to win. Ultimately, he'll check his ego, understanding what's happening. You go to your guys. Maton pitched great. Budo looked incredible.
Yeah, I was surprised.
He got squeezed to start that inning, too, and he threw some close pitches, and he didn't let it get to him. I think that's the difference. He continued to throw strikes. He looked awesome. And then going to Diaz, who pitched the night before, and 2 previous nights. So this was 3 out of 4 for him.
Yeah.
And he went 2 innings. That's what you're going to have at certain aspects. And they did it. I was very impressed. Again, he's putting his team in a position to be in the playoffs. And now he treats a game that's a must-win situation. It wouldn't have been if they would have been down. He wouldn't have, put in Diaz down 1. But when you have a lead, you have to win those ball games.
Yeah.
And they did. And he put his best players in the best chance for the team to succeed, and they pulled through for him. I loved it.
And I mean, we talked a little bit about what stories could have been, like with the Lindor and McNeil injuries. The story also could have been Edwin Diaz blowing a bunch of crucial games down the stretch. I mean, the Diamondbacks Grand Slam is a game I still think about. The walk-off home run to the Padres still looms large as well in terms of tiebreakers or wildcard standings. If this game also ended that way, it becomes a conversation of like, this is the guy that we needed in our biggest spots possible, and he's not coming through. So not only was it big for the win in the moment, but I think the overarching thing of like, the Mets still think, and I think believe, as well as I do, that they have the best closer in the game. And when you have the best closer in the game, you let him go out there and get 6 outs against the heart of the lineup, the top 6 Phillies hitters. And he went out there and he did it, man. Now, the stolen base thing still scares the shit out of me. I really wish that he would just throw over.
Especially with, he's a one-pitch pitcher right now.
He's a fastball-only guy who like throws in a wrinkle slider every once in a while, but it's working.
Yeah.
And you know what? If things are working, you have to let them play out, just like Acuña and Iglesias leading off. if something works, Mendoza is not afraid to just let it run.
Yeah. And I don't think that Diaz is capable at this point of slide stepping, nor do I want him to do anything except for he's like effectively wild with his fastball.
Yeah.
To where guys don't know if it's going to be a strike. They know
Harper got bent up pretty bad in their at bat. He swung at a pitch,
because it moves so. Right. He had such good movement, and you're just like, he fell like behind 3-0, and then he took some like 3 straight fastballs. You're just like,
sure,
if you're going to be one pitch, it better not be in the same spot every time. So I think he'll figure it out. If he gets that slider, then he'll be the best pitcher or best closer in the game.
That'd be nice.
But he's still dominating, and I love this confidence. And he tore through the best team in baseball.
Yeah, I mean that's a bunch of people's favorite World Series pick at this point.
Deservedly too.
League. And that was all their guys. That was top of the order through the 8-hole. That's what Diaz faced. Since August 29th, 13 in the third innings, 1 earned run, 25 strikeouts to 3 walks. That strikeout rate is what we saw in 22, and he's doing it with 1 pitch, dude. That's ridiculous.
If that second pitch shows up, look out.
I know. It's just, it gets me excited. And none of it is possible without Reed Garrett becoming the setup guy once again. It's a really cool story for him as well. Since August 22nd, 11 2/3 innings, no earned runs, 13 strikeouts. This was a guy that was the guy in April, and the Mets unfortunately had to lean on him big time because they didn't really have anyone else they could rely on. It came back to bite them with Reed, going down midseason. For him to come back and pitch like this and ease the stress of guys like Budo and Maton and, lengthen this bullpen.
And Mendoza.
Who's had to deal with this all year long.
That's right.
It's a really big thing. And you mentioned Hefner. I mean, how good does Jeremy Hefner look? When you look at this pitching staff,
he's been good. Like, he's underrated,
and New York
underappreciated.
is a cruel market, so, it's, fair weather sometimes. But you look at the names on this pitching staff, and you look at how pretty the numbers have gotten for basically every Mets pitcher at this point. How can you not give most, if not all, of the credit to Jeremy Hefner for just piecing together what has become...
The whole pitching department.
Really?
Yeah, and he's led the way, and they've invested in it. Allowing them to modernize their, the way they go about it.
Yeah.
But he's definitely at the forefront of putting guys, trying to give them a chance to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. It's
collaborative. He lets guys decide and talk through this. But they target certain guys and they say, hey, even on a trade target like Phil Maton or Ryan Stanek, they're like, hey, look, you were mechanically, we think that this is what was preventing you from being back at your max, or we see something that with Reed Garrett, this guy is a completely different pitcher than he was 2 years ago.
Right. Even in April, he's now a completely different pitcher.
Yeah, he's 31 and he has figured out together with who he is, and I'm very happy for him because they needed him. When Edwin Diaz went down, he stepped into the closer role, and it was too much for him.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be, he got hurt. They overpitched him. He got hurt. He came back too fast, and it took him a while to figure out his release point, all that, and he's back. And they need him because if all things go, they're going to need him. They're going to need Budo, obviously Diaz. They're going to need Phil Maton. They're going to need Danny Young.
Yeah.
And probably one other guy to kind of be real during this stretch because you can't always, Sean Manaea, those guys, the rotation has been out of this world.
Yeah.
But in a playoff game, you're not always going to give that guy the option to go if you have the ability to bring in a shutdown reliever like Reed Garrett.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth because as great, the biggest thing with the rotation has been the length. Like Manaea has that streak of 6 2/3 innings going since like early August. Like
it's insane.
All these guys have been giving like serious innings, and most of them have been really quality starts as well. But in the playoffs, you don't have the opportunity as much to let them sort through. Jams.
Maybe I don't know, man. I feel like Mendoza.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. This might be their formula.
Yeah.
But again, it's possible. But Mendoza's going to play it. If he feels like this guy can go out and get outs, he's going to let them. If not, though, he'll go to one of these many guys that need to step up.
Yeah.
So
What he's shown me, Mendoza, this past month is that he really is a good blend of old school and new school. He's not afraid to let starters go. He's not afraid to use his guys in big moments for longer than 3 outs and, leave them somewhat unprotected in that way. And he doesn't really care like what you've done in years past, what your role is on the team currently. If something works, he's going to let it ride. So, you know what? When speaking on that, maybe he does let Sean
That's what I mean.
Go 7 innings in a playoff start.
Yeah. Baseball's such a game of mentality, and it deals a lot on the mound with, for me, again, personally, confidence.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're making the right choice, whether it's pitch selection, who you're facing, it's confidence. Carlos Mendoza is confident. He knows that he's prepared. He knows his team. He knows the opponents. When he makes a decision, it just feels like the right decision.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't work out, which this is a game. It's not always going to work out, but if he leaves you in there, he thinks he's going to be right, and maybe he is right, even if the outcome is wrong. So I don't know what it would look like in the playoffs with Sean Manaea going out into the 7th, into the 8th inning. Who knows what it would be?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, and it's crazier to think that it's potentially next week is when it might happen. So it's cool to think about. It's also time to play my favorite game, Jerry, because we're talking about the chaotic nature of our bullpen. It's time to play the game. How many different Mets relievers have recorded a save this season, Jerry? Lock in your guess. How many? Give me a number.
6.
Undershot, Jerry.
Yeah.
10 different Mets relievers.
I thought I was over, to be honest.
A save this
How many?
year. 10.
What's the? Do you know the average?
I would guess 3 at most, because most teams have a closer, and that closer is either the guy until they get traded at the deadline, or they just stick there the whole year. The Mets have a closer. They have the highest paid closer in baseball, but that just goes to show you, I think, how much maneuvering this manager has had to do throughout the year, how much he's had to finagle a bullpen that has at times been the Achilles heel of the team and now has become an integral strength of the team. Some of the names on that list are really funny too. But Diaz got his 20th, which is nice. I like when you can get to that nice round number. But we need to talk a little bit more about the starting rotation, which came up big again.
Yeah, is that where you want to go next?
I think absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, Sean Manaea had a pair of big time starts, one against the Nationals, one against the Phillies, both of them 7 innings long. We talked about McGill. I thought he pitched really well in the Phillies game. That first inning scared the daylights out of me, but he got out of the bases loaded jam and settled in after. Also threw 6 shut against the Nationals. Quintana again threw a scoreless outing. He's given up 1 run in his past 8,000 innings, apparently. Just big time performances from the guys across the board. And, you think of the identity of the 2022 team and how it ended. A lot of it revolved around starting pitching.
Yeah.
I have a lot of confidence in these guys, and I'm ready to get hurt, but I'm also ready to be rewarded.
I do too, man. These guys have been stellar, and they really come into their own. I love their chemistry. First of all, this team has epic chemistry.
It's awesome.
It really is. But in individual groups, you can see that these guys pull for each other, make each other better. They're great as a team, but they're also great as units. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's football season right now, right? Special teams, defense, offense. These are on an island. They all come together, but they do their work by themselves because what they do is specialized in a certain aspect.
Yeah.
This rotation has come together and pushed each other, and they're a special unit. Quintana, what was it that you read about Quintana's career?
Oh yeah.
So if this isn't guys figure it out and baseball is a marathon.
So first I want to lead off by saying, don't always listen to me. I don't always know what's best. I'm not a coach. I'm just a fan. In July, I think I was saying Jose Quintana maybe should get DFA'd. He now has a 3.74 ERA on the season over 30 starts. His career ERA, 3.74. He's the guy you paid for. He's the guy you signed, and he's come up massive. He still hasn't given up an earned run in September. It's been 3 starts.
Yeah, it's insane.
He's just finding a way. He's really fun to watch too. I think of the Mets starters, he's probably my favorite to watch outside of Manaea, who's just been absolutely dominant. But
he's a complete starting pitcher. He holds runners really well. He fields his position really well. He doesn't overpower you with stuff. He hits his spots. He mixes his pitches. He just knows how to win. And in an era where guys are just throwing their best stuff all the time, it's really refreshing to watch a guy pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of his. He's a great human. So that's easy to root for. Plus, he's left-handing. He's a great human being.
A lot of lefties on this team. I kind of love it.
I know. I'm like,
kind of love it.
I like seeing it as well. Just it is what it is. I see them in the wild, and I'm like, hey, fellow lefty.
Hey, one of my own. Well,
but I'm a huge fan of Quintana. You talked about the upcoming rotation.
Yeah.
And Peterson's slated. You were like, I don't know, maybe they give it to Quintana, but I don't think I think that might jar some confidence, shuffling things up as is. But I think guys might be okay with it. Again, it's a feel thing, and that's not set in stone.
Yeah.
They might already talk, and they're using it as, a competitive advantage, not detailing what it is. But with Peterson, I think he's a very good pitcher. I think he got hit around a little bit, which happens, but he didn't walk anybody. The bane of his existence has been throwing balls, walking guys, and then giving up a big 3-run home run. He filled the zone up, and he put the pitches where they needed. They were just all over him. He almost threw too many strikes.
Yeah.
Take advantage of aggressiveness, come in. Like Quintana would have understood, come pitch in off of him. But this is what I understand about this unit is Quintana will go to Peterson and be like, hey, man, these guys are swinging. Throw some balls off the zone that are going to get weak contact. But this whole unit has been spectacular.
So he was the one guy I didn't mention in our lead-in about the rotation, and it is a little unfair to him because he really only had the one bad start of anyone this past turn. Everyone else just absolutely dealt. And there is, I think, a little apprehension among fans right now because 2 of the last 3 starts have been, kind of iffy. He didn't look great against the Blue Jays. Looked terrific against Christopher Sanchez on the Sunday game in Philadelphia. And then, like you said, got hit around a little bit. But walks have not been an issue. And I think that's a big confidence booster when you're watching Peterson. 9 walks to 37 strikeouts in his last 43 innings. That bodes really well. And you know what? I didn't think of it until you said it. It might be a confidence thing. I think it could be very detrimental to a guy like David Peterson, who's going through his best season as a big leaguer, pitching deeper into a season than he ever has before, to get the ball taken from him in the biggest series of the year when he's been that guy for you many times throughout the year. But it's a massive game. So we're talking about the Atlanta series now. The probables are Severino versus Schwellenbach tonight. Tomorrow, it's David Peterson versus a team he's never beaten in his career on their home turf against the prospective NL Cy Young winner in Chris Sale. That is about as big of a spot you can get with it not being a playoff game as possible. And that's game 2. And then Manaea goes to third game. I don't know, man. Like, I know that we have a special attachment to him, especially you. You've been championing him for years at this point. I don't think it's hyperbolic to call that the biggest start of his career, no?
I mean, it's definitely of the season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember. Didn't he pitch in the playoffs?
I think he was in the bullpen.
Did he pitch? The biggest start of his career? We'll give it to him. But yeah, man.
He pitched in a 7-1 game and a 6-0 game, both losses in the Padres series.
This will be a big start. This is the biggest regular season start of his career. It's a tough environment against, almost your mean big brother over the last few years. They're looking to play heartbreaker. Atlanta's coming for blood. I guarantee it. Yeah. Will this team allow it? And a lot of it hangs on the shoulders of this starting rotation. And let's see what Peterson's got, man. Does he have it enough to keep you in a position to win a ball game? Yeah. I'm not looking for 7 shutout, but I need you to keep us in the ball game. So.
Right. That game 2 in Philly, I actually, when Mendoza took him out, I thought it was a good move. Obviously, it didn't age well because got lit up after that. The game became a wash. But it was clear that they were on him. They had his number. They were hitting him. If that's the case in Atlanta, I expect Mendoza to act the same way. But I do think it would be just a really cool and cathartic game for him to, come through and be the guy.
Get a W against Chris Sale too.
Get a W against Chris Sale,
yeah,
guy who probably, watched a lot of, he was going through the minor leagues and stuff like that. It's as big as it gets. I can't believe that we're here again. I guess we can finally turn it over to the Atlanta series now, which is the big story. So they went to Miami. They lost the first game, which was so big because if they swept Miami, that would have been a completely different story. Instead, they win 2 out of 3, which puts the Mets 2 games ahead of them in wild card standings. So there are some situations with this series, much like last time. There's an infamous Shea Station short where I explained the implications of the 2022 series, and we all know that ended up. But if the Mets win the series, they're in.
Yeah.
Point blank. They'll have the tiebreaker over the Braves. The Braves, even if they sweep and we get swept in the following series, they won't be able to catch us. They can match our record, but we'll have the tiebreaker. So that obviously is the prerogative going into this series. And I don't know, I actually went back and I watched our episode before the Atlanta series last time, because I just wanted to see how we were acting.
Mm-hmm.
There was
we were very negative.
We were very, there were
out of character.
Flowing. But the 2 things that got mentioned in that episode were not sweeping the Oakland A's, who were a very different version of the A's than the ones we saw this year. This A's team was pretty good this year. And then getting swept by the Cubs at home. Those 2 things were kind of throwing a dark cloud over the September Mets. And even in the Miami series that they won before Atlanta, that was Eduardo Escobar just carrying everybody in that game. No one was hot. They were going into Atlanta with a really cold offense.
That made me smile, by the way. Thinking of Escobar's
I know.
run.
You forget. It's unfortunate. That's one of the things you forget. He was a hero in September. It just didn't end up mattering. But the biggest thing for me is that this offense is hot right now. They have 6 guys that are going.
Here's the difference, and I'm going to visualize it for those of you listening at home. 2022 to this point.
Yeah.
2024. So they're literally the 2022 team was falling apart and let Atlanta rip it out. This team feels like it's ascending, and it's been a fun ride. We talked about that with Talking Jake, when he was in here.
Yeah.
How the Yankee season, they're the best team in the baseball or American League, best record in baseball. But it's been are they even
second best record?
Second best record. Are they even a playoff team?
Right.
Can they have a rotation? It just has been they're the best offense. Who else is going to step up? It's been a wild ride for them. But for the Mets, it started out high hopes and then really low. And then since the team meeting, grimace, however order you want to put it, it's literally been a fun ride to be on, ascending. And they're at this point. And Atlanta has the capability of punching you in the mouth.
Oh, absolutely.
And ending your season and it completely derailing with it. But if we're comparing it to the 2022 series, it was going in the other direction where we were don't get swept by the Braves. We're talking about, this is a different, they're a different ball club and the Mets are a different ball club.
I think the other thing for me is that in 22, the time before when they played the Braves at Truist, they lost 3 or 4. 2 of the games that got absolutely decked by the Braves offense. And it was our guys going in those games. It was Bassett, it was Scherzer pitching in big games, and they weren't getting the job done then. And it shouldn't have come as a shock that they didn't get the job done later on. But it doesn't change the fact that Mets team went into that Braves series with a good record in September, with way more wins at that point, on pace for 100, and with higher expectations, I think. And with this Mets team in wildcard territory rather than division territory, it doesn't change the fact that this is a either nightmare scenario or the perfect way for this team to get into the playoffs. I think that I talked with a lot of Yankees fans about this, specifically Dan Rourke, so shout out to him. A lot of Yankees talk on this episode too.
We're surrounded by it's John Boy. We're in the throes of it. Don't talk, Jack. He's wearing a Yankees hat.
Keep that mic off. I was talking to him about it, and I said, okay, if you guys go on to win the World Series, yada. If you're watching playoff baseball, are you happy to see the Astros get knocked out in the first round? And at first he said yes, and I said, well, don't you think it would be much better to be the ones to knock them out on your way to accomplishing the biggest goal? And that really redirected his brain. He said, you know what, either way, I'm happy if they win, but I would much rather us be the people to knock them out. If I'm the Mets, I think I'm kind of thinking the same way. I think these guys are confident in their abilities, and I don't think you want someone else taking care of the dirty work for you. If you have the chance to not only control your own destiny, but doom the fate of the team that has doomed your fate so many times for the past 30 years, I think you leap at that opportunity. And that's why I feel like this team is different. I don't think they're shy of the moment. I think that, honestly, getting 4 games with the Phillies right before this was a blessing.
I agree.
We said it 2 weeks ago. I think the strength of schedule thing with them having to play really tough teams in September is ultimately beneficial to them because now it's a month straight of playing playoff caliber teams that are going to be in the dance, teams that you're going to have to face. I think they're battle tested at this point. I feel much better. Maybe it's 2020 hindsight, but I feel much better than I did 2 years ago.
Yeah, it does feel different.
Yeah.
The team feels different. Team chemistry is definitely different. I think that's the difference for me is this team has been such a fun watch and positive and playing the right way, all the above. But you're right. If you wrote this like a movie script or a book and you were capable of like, this team wins a World Series, what would be the best way to get there?
Right.
And through the Braves is definitely, you don't want to like fall down and then the Braves, get beat up by somebody else.
Right.
You would like to be the one to punch. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this series it's must win for me because there is a world where the Mets can lose this series and still make the playoffs based on what the Braves do and what the Diamondbacks do. But it's going to be the same thing as 2 years ago. The confidence of the fan base and the team, I think, is going to take a huge hit if they don't come away with this series. What do you think?
I don't think so.
No?
I mean, if they lose the series 2-1 in Atlanta against a tough team, but they play really good baseball and they just get beat by 1 run or here or there, or somebody comes up. I don't. This team isn't capable of being wiped off of confidence for me.
Yeah.
With 1 series loss. Unless they play like scared, you know
That's
what I
the
mean?
thing.
But if they play their brand of baseball, which they've proven to do over a 3-game series, obviously you want them to win. But if they lose 2 out of 3, but they played good baseball, I don't think I lose confidence in that.
I think that's a good like halfway point. Obviously, a sweep is a different story, and we've lived in that world before. But yeah, there is a world where they can lose this series 1-2 and basically just match whatever the Braves do against the Royals, and they can still get in. Plus, if the Diamondbacks keep sliding, that's a world too.
It is very possible.
It's me doing a little baseball daydreaming, but the path right now is if they win this series, they knock off the Braves, and then in all likelihood, if they win the series and keep winning, they go to San Diego for the wild card round. It's a repeat of 2022. It almost feels like a cruel, reality, but at the same time, it has a chance to be a really nice story for this team.
You gotta beat the best teams. It doesn't matter, you know. So you're just right now. There's so many scenarios that are possible. I mean, even in the American League, like their wild card series has turned out to their race. It was the whole season. It felt like it was already scripted. There was like 1 spot open.
Yeah.
It's wide open for them. There's wild.
4 teams fighting for 2 spots right now. 3 of them are in the Central, which I would not have had in my book.
Nobody
at
had
all.
that.
Go Tigers.
Yeah.
Shock the world.
You talked about the Royals. They have been falling apart, but they're going to be playing the Braves. They're going to be fighting for their life. So they're going to give it all they got.
Their slide is actually really important to the Mets because the Brewers might not be playing for anything when we get there. Obviously, they're still going to try and win ball games under Pat Murphy. That guy's not going to let anything slide. The Royals might be fighting for their lives against the Braves, and they're doing it on
very
their home
likely
turf.
to be in like must-win territory.
So that's a big turn of events for the Mets. So hopefully something can come of that as well. But at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to control your destiny.
Control your own destiny.
Teams can say that. Not a lot of teams get afforded that opportunity, and I don't think this is the kind of roster that would go on to squander that. I'm really excited for these pitching matchups. These games look like they're going to be absolute bangers.
We have really well-informed people that listeners. Schwellenbach, we talked about a pitcher. We talked about Quintana being able. This guy's a pitcher too.
He's a guy.
Throws like 14 pitches. He's got a nasty split finger. He's not afraid to mix it up. Chris
also
Sale
handled the Mets earlier this year.
Yeah. He's nasty. And then you talk about Chris Sale. We've been blown away by Sean Manaea and his kind of ascension to ace territory. Well, guess who he modeled himself after?
His muse.
His muse. Yeah. Chris Sale. I mean, the papa of everything that is that.
It's the best story in baseball this year.
It's my favorite story because I was around in the AL watching Chris Sale ascend. He was a closer for a little bit and then stepped into it. He's the best pitcher of an era that doesn't have doesn't have a Cy Young to his belt. He's going to get it this year.
Yeah.
But he's been absolutely dominant his whole career. And then Max Fried, who's been the ace of their staff for like half a dozen years, it feels like. He's had kind of an up and down year himself going into free agency against Manaea. Like Peterson, Sale, Manaea, Fried, Severino, Schwellenbach to start. Like it's fun.
I will say this. So Chris Sale started 14 games since the beginning of July. His team has only lost 2 of those games. One of them was against the New York Mets.
Yeah.
And I do take some solace in that. The guy's 18-3 on the year, Jerry. I know wins and losses are kind of
on a team that's
now.
kind of not
Right.
been dominant.
They're not winning
Max Fried's 10-10,
Yeah.
but when you put up a 2.38 ERA
Good things happen.
through 29 starts, yeah, you're going to get some W's. Speaking of, their closer has an argument to be the best in baseball in Luisangel Iglesias.
Yeah.
He's got sub 2.
Can't forget about him. That's been kind of their Achilles heel, too. Their bullpen has been
Bullpen.
fairly weak by all things considered, but Luisangel Iglesias has been right there with basically the best closers you can think of in the game, like Clase, those guys. But
Yeah, this is a huge series. There's gonna be a lot of stress for Mets fans. I can already, that exhale that you just gave me, Jolly, makes me understand. It's gonna be fun to cover. This is a fun team. This is what it's all about. So enjoy the moment. And I think that's what Nimmo was saying to the fans when he was asking them to come fill up the ballpark. A shout out again to the fans that showed up, that watched on
Big
TV to give the environment. But this is what you want. Enjoy it. It's stressful. Yes, you're going to be sweaty palms. You're going to be on the edge of your seat. You're going to be heartbroken. But having your heart broken is still what you want. You don't want to be. This team could have easily rolled over in May and decided to be, a terrible watch, and you tune out. We're at the end of September, going up with a chance to do some awesome things. Enjoy the moment. This is a huge series in Atlanta. I'm going to be working the pre and post game, but I'm going to be watching every pitch, just like every fan out there, just, keeping my scorecard, enjoying, wanting to see who's going to be the hero. Because this Mets team has been kind of a wild card on who's stepping up and who's going to be the guy.
So let me ask you this. First off, I think you might agree, but I don't think Francisco Lindor is playing in the series.
I don't know.
Shocked. I would be really shocked if that happened.
Yeah. I have no pre-fitted if he's going to play or not.
Yeah.
I'm not if he's healthy enough to play, he'll play. I think they would be cautious with him for sure, understanding. But I wouldn't. Obviously, it would be better to have an MVP level candidate.
Hot take.
Yeah, right. So hot. But I'd be okay if he didn't play because I know it's for the better of the team and for him. So if I would love to see him out there, but I wouldn't. I'm not expecting him to play, and I'm also wouldn't be surprised.
So I think if he did play, I think he would obviously be the guy everyone looks out for the most in the lineup to see how he does. Assuming he doesn't, I would like you to give me one name. One name of a hitter.
It's Pete Alonso, man. Yeah. This is, again, you're talking about writing something.
This is it.
A story, the movie, whatever version. This is it. This is Pete Alonso, possibly his last time wearing a Mets uniform, beating their nemesis, putting up, a series in 3 games, hitting 5 homers, carrying the team, blowing out, hitting 2 off Chris Sale. You know what I'm saying? This has the ability to be the story. And Pete Alonso, again, he's having a very good season.
I know.
He's kind of hot right now, but I don't want to say it because I'm nervous, so I'll kind of knock on wood.
He has the opportunity to make a ton of money these next 2 weeks.
First of all, he's going to make a ton of money.
I know, but
he has a chance to be a hero. He's kind of come up short season long with runners in scoring position, with men on base.
Yeah.
You can erase every bit of that when the team needs you, when all eyes are on you across the nation. Step up. Pete Alonso's my guy. I have faith in him, and this is what I would want to script out.
Right. It was, for me, it was the only imperfection on an otherwise perfect night on Sunday was hearing the crowd as loud as they were all night chanting his name and not seeing him come through was
he pulled that.
deflating.
Yeah, he pulled the homer.
Dude, he just fucking missed it. I know. I overreacted to it.
Yeah.
Got my friends all hyped up. I'm gonna go a different route. I'm glad that you said
cool.
I'm glad you said Pete because I thought he should have been mentioned. In 2022, in what I believe was the final game of the sweep, in the 9th inning against Kenley Jansen, a young 19-year-old, 20-year-old?
I think he was 19.
He was 19. Stepped up to the plate for his second big league at bat, and on 3 pitches, struck out and flung his bat into the stands. That man was Francisco Alvarez, and a lot has changed in the 2 years since that moment, since that very humbling moment. I'm looking for him to take ownership of his MLB debut and rectify anything that he might have, looked back on and dwelled on. I think it's a big series for him. I think he got hot at the perfect time.
Yeah.
He's got 5 home runs in his last 10 games. His power stroke seems to be there. His confidence seems to be there. I think that obviously it's a weird thing to say. I think him going through his slump might end up doing wonders for him. It was really the first tough go of his extended career. He had bad months here and there, but that was a 2.5 month stretch of just poor offense from a guy that we expect, 30 home runs off the bat from. He has an opportunity to not only redeem himself, but, grab the spotlight by the hair and just make it his own. And I really am excited for him because he's never been in a situation like this in his career before. I'm hoping Francisco Alvarez keeps the good times rolling and has a big time week in Atlanta.
I love it. That would be, again, another wonderful story.
Stories are everywhere, man.
So here's this is a different topic.
Okay.
Again, Fangraphs, how they do the last
Fangraphs guy.
I'm a baseball reference guy.
Oh, okay.
Fangraphs is secondary. Baseball reference, baseball savant, Fangraphs.
Wow. Fangraphs 3.
Fangraphs is 3, but they're all top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They won the bronze medal. We're not. But so I was, looking at the upcoming series.
Yeah.
Atlanta's offense is on fire. The last 7 days,
Speaking
Michael Harris,
at the right time.
The second is 4th. Marcelo Zuna is coming out of his kind of mini slump at 21st. Matt Olson is all the way back. He's number 2. Jorge Soler's 24. Laureano is on fire at 28.
Yeah, I know.
Who single-handedly won us a game by overrunning a ball.
I forgot about that.
Gio Urshela is hot. And they got Ozzy Albies back like 3 days ago.
Only hitting right-handed, apparently. Too.
Yeah. So, again, facing a ton of lefties, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But they're a hot team. They're better than the version that we saw them.
Yes.
They're hungry. I wouldn't expect this team to roll over at all. This is a team that has winning in their DNA. It's something that the Mets want to be like.
Yeah.
And so their backs against the wall. I expect them to come out fighting. This is fun, man. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you could look at on the 24 Braves is like, oh, that offense doesn't look like a Braves offense. They do right now.
now.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be going in thinking that the things are going to be easy going for the pitching staff. Yeah, I think we attacked and covered all bases. It's just as it seems fake. It seems fake. The amount of storylines we just ran by and
it's definitely going to be nothing like what we said. There's something surprising going to happen because it's baseball.
It'll never be the guy you
it.
expect, on either side. But
there's going to be some other story. But again, enjoy this moment.
Yeah.
It's fun. Watch it. Talk about it. Interact with people. Wear your blue and orange around the city. He's right. He's wearing Jolly's wearing a Mets jersey. Do you know whose jersey? If you had to guess, would it be Javi Baez's jersey?
Go Tigers, baby. Go Tigers.
The Tigers are a great story in baseball right now. They're kind of the anti-Javi Baez Tigers, to be honest.
I think I like the third wild card.
It's fun.
I think I like it.
I don't like it still.
I know you don't like it.
You don't want to know why?
Why?
Because give me a 1-game wild card like the beginning, and then 7 games in the division series.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah,
huh?
because
wow.
this is 162 games. This is a full team sport. In 3 games or a 5-game set, you're not seeing who the best team is.
Yeah.
A wild card is a wild card. Give me the 1 game and then go 7 in the division series, because at that point you've earned it. The wild card is wild for a reason.
Right.
It's a coin flip on, who you win, and then you go in, and the team that was already in the division winner has an advantage because they had to throw their ace in the wild card game.
Right.
So that's a true whatever.
Let me ask you this. So
we're off the rails a little bit.
Oh yeah, of course, but that's where we get to.
If you want to
50-minute mark,
end it there. If you want to continue now.
You're on the other side of your playing career now.
Yeah.
Seasoned vet.
Well, on the other side.
2016, the Mets were in the 1-game playoff. What was the mood in the clubhouse? Because technically, without the 5th seed, you guys would have just been in the DS. Do you feel different than you did as a player? Or?
No. I enjoyed it because we should have won the ball game, and we lost, and we didn't deserve to win. You know what I mean? We went home, and you saw what the Giants were capable of doing. We got Connor Gillespie.
It's crazy.
But we put ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
We weren't as good as we were not good.
But
we went on a hot streak.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we didn't get to show the fans, and show out who we were. And we had some special talent on there, but we didn't deserve it. We didn't win the division.
The reason I bring it up, anything can happen in any game.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if it's regular season importance or playoff importance, and it goes for this 3-game set and all the things surrounding it. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if this were a World Series, you could face the Braves in a game, like 7-game series. Anything can happen. Like, you get to see who the best team is. In a 3-game set, you might see, I don't know, some guy hit a home run that you've never heard of, or have a big moment, and the series swings in 3 games because of, a weird Chadwick Tromp, has an error in the back and a guy scores.
Good pull.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Luis Torrens grand slam.
Yeah, something wild.
Yeah.
But I just like to see the best teams get a chance to show a full team in a 7-game set. But
there's a world where we're
digress.
talking about the upcoming free agent class in this episode and talking about, the rookies look really good. We're excited for next year. Instead, we get to talk about playoff baseball in September.
Yeah, let's do it. Enjoy the ride. Let's go Mets.
Yes, don't throw up. Wear your jersey to work, even if your boss says not to. And if you watch on YouTube, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and leave us a review if you listen on podcast apps, because I always forget to say it. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you on the other side.
Music hits better in person.
So much better. Shout out Tyler Taylor. We didn't talk about him.
He's one of the hottest hitters in baseball.
Peace. Love you.
Thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time, where we'll be back.
Station.